Hello, hello. This is Tammy Bronker, Sky Woman, beaming to you live from Guadalajara, Mexico, with an oracle for this Gemini full moon that is exact Saturday Sunday, December 15th, this Sunday, early morning, for most of you listening. And it's going to the most dramatic moment to work with this full moon is going to be Sunday night, December 15th, when you see moonrise. I'm going to explain to you why that is, but I hope you're doing well, and I'm so excited to be with you. This is such an extraordinary full moon. In fact, this particular full moon is referred to as Lunistice. It's the full moon closest to the winter solstice, and that full moon is always going to be a moon where the moon is, because the sun is at its extreme, right? So in the south, in the winter, in the northern hemisphere, and just reverse this if you're in the southern hemisphere, the sun is going to be at its extreme to in the southern position in the sky, right? So at the winter solstice, the sun will be at its extreme to the south. And so then when you see the moon rise, because when it's a full moon, the sun sets and then you see the moon rise, you will see the moon rise at its furthest extreme to the east, the north, I'm sorry, to the north. And so there's you're gonna see, and even sensationally you would feel in your body that there is this massive separation in a sense, or um an extreme we call it also out of bounds. The moon is out of bounds. So that happens every year when there's a full moon close to the solstice. However, there's also a larger phenomenon that has to do with the moon's orbit and just the larger moon cycle, right? We think of the moon cycles as being, the cycles we follow would tend to fall in two categories. Either you're looking at the um, the phases of the moon, moving from new to full to new again, and that takes 29 and a half days. Or you could be following the lunar cycle that is, call it sidereal, which is how long does it take for the moon to move through the sky and move, for example, to be in contact with a particular star or star cluster. Like how long does it take for the moon to go from to be in contact with the Pleiades and then to come back and contact that point in the sky again? That's sidereal. That takes 27.3 days. So those are two lunar cycles that are each about a month, right? So that's one way to work with the lunar cycles. Another way is to work with the lunar eclipses. And then another way, a larger lunar cycle takes 18.6 years. And that is we work with that as the lunar standstill cycle. And so every 18.6 years, the moon will have a major lunar standstill experience, or phase period, where over the course of about a year, the moon not only, normally it would be pretty far to the north at the closest to the solstices. The full moon closest to the solstices is going to be opposite the sun, so it's going to be really far extreme relative to the sun. However, every 18.6 years, it's even more extreme. And the moon starts to look, over the last year, the moon has really been in this phase. And so, for those who really observe, if you're lucky enough to have a place where you are out on the land and you have a decent horizon line and you can really observe the moon through all its phases, which I highly recommend that we do, then you're going to notice that the moon is, that at the full moons closest to the solstice and equinoxes, that it's at an extreme, right? When it rises in the east at the full moon. Anyway, so you will notice then that it's been moving in the sky very strangely. So a dear friend and former partner of mine always watches the sky. He always wakes up really early and he always spends a lot of time under the sky. He's got a great view. And so he's been noticing that the moon has been really weird. It's just in strange position. It's higher in the sky. So what I'm referring to really is the simplest way to observe it, which is literally where it rises along the horizon at moonrise. But its entire movement is different this last year than it usually is. So not only, and this is another feature to help us understand that last year, 2024 and 2025, are both years of massive, massive change and extreme. So we had the solar maximum that was last year. It was actually a year early. And that was all last year, where the sun was extremely active. And that's why we had all the auroras and the solar flares and the coronal mass ejections and all of that solar activity. And that, according to some, that solar maximum really peaked October 15th of this year, but it's still going to be not quite as extreme, we think, but still quite active next year. So we had the solar cycle that was like really it's an 11-year maximum cycle that happens every 11 years. And then we had the the lunar standstill window, which is the moon as at its extreme, that would have been active last year. And so it would have been most visible last summer solstice around the full moon, and now it's going to be quite visible again. It would have been, you could have seen it at any full moon. You could have felt and experienced this, but I'm sorry, at any, I'm not going to go into the details. Anyway, it's most extreme at the lunar and summer solstices, the full moon there. But, um, and so this one is the final really extreme, where the moon is even further to the northeast, when you see it rise at moonrise, and when you are observing it in its right now in the sky, the full moon, if you are tuned into your body, and if you have that kinesthetic relationship between, for what it feels like to be on the earth, connecting to the moon, connecting to the sun, connecting to the sunrise, sunset, connecting to moonrise, moonset, connecting to the phases of the moon relative to where you are on the land, you are going to feel it in your body. It is a very strange, and for the last year, it's a very strange experience to sense the way that the moon is different than normal. So, in my early training as a shamanic astrologer, what most deeply drew me to that particular training is that my teacher, Daniel Giamario, was one of the first. This is going to sound really weird now for people, but when he was beginning to really source this work back in the 80s, 90s, he would take people out on the land on these, and so people would be camping out in sacred sites all throughout the West, and he had a knack for going into wilderness sites and just locating these sites that had been forgotten, but that originally had been designed to be in alignment with this 18.6-year lunar cycle, or the solstices or equinoxes, with petroglyphs and other phenomenon that were aligned to the solar and lunar cycles. And in any case, he would take people out on the land to learn the sky and to work with the moon and the different cycles of the planets, so that they would get direct downloads. So that informed deeply, and was also part of my training, to the degree that I was required to do a vision quest, at least at one point, but I actually did the whole full year, where I would go every month I went to a sacred site. I was lucky to have that available within an hour of Albuquerque, where I lived. I went to this beautiful place out under the sky every month, and I would sleep under the stars. And so I could observe the way that the sky changed. The different stars would be up, different phases of the moon, the quality of the sunlight with the sunrise, sunset based on the season, all those kinds of things. So that deeply informed my practice. And my sense is that this is something that is such a profound gift for human beings at this time, now that we're waking up in mass to the importance of reweaving ourselves into the cycles of the full moons, new moons, all of these things, equinoxes, solstices. Now it's kind of all over the web. We're all waking up to the timings of these things. And also, there's so much information available online about what this means, everything means, so you can micromanage that. And that's kind of exciting too. However, my sense is that nothing is more powerful than actually spending time becoming very intimately attuned to the lunar cycles, when you have the different phases of the moon, and how that feels in your body, and what are the insights you get, and what is it actually like when the moon is in the sign of Libra? What is that? When the sun is in the sign of Libra, how do you tune into that? That has to do with the seasonal energies, and it has to do with the angle, the different of the angle between the sun and the earth and the moon, at particular times. And so our bodies here in space on the earth have a relationship to those energies and are influenced by those energetics. In any case, this Lunistice is incredibly exciting, and I've been looking at it for a long time. And I actually, the community I live in Missouri, I just sent them a little missive saying, hey, I should have done it before I didn't. They've got all kinds of people, I have many neighbors and friends who have land where they could have a ceremony, they could gather people to observe this, they could potentially build some kind of a stone structure or even put a stake down for now that kind of shows where that moon rises or sets. Um, and that's the simplest way to do it. I will also recommend that you Google, look up Callanish, Callanish. Callanish is a sacred site in Scotland, and look up Lunar Standstill Window Callanish because this is one of many sites that are the ancient peoples would have designed because they saw this almost 19-year cycle of the moon as so important that they observed it through designing stone circles, designing landforms, what my teacher would call hierophanies. And this is so they were aligned with these sacred timings. Um, so the lunar standstill, Callanish is a phenomenal site to study that. Just watch a little video, see what happens. It's super exciting because these timings are already a moment where our human bodies, our energy systems, our spirits are going to be receiving more downloads, more insights, more celestial medicine. And so when we actively engage with that earth sky mystery through observing it, spending time on the land with it, and then even potentially um, doing something to mark um, through a stone circle, or there are many other ways you can build a hierophany, even drawing your own little image or picture or star or whatever on a stone or on a wall or wherever where the sun or the moon shines on that point, then that is something you can use to commemorate. And so that that when that comes again, then it's gonna activate that point, right? So and if you happen to be a land steward, a land guardian, I highly recommend, because I haven't had my own land at this point in my life, and at some stage, this is a big reason why I want my own land, because I want to be able to build the stone circles. I want to be able to creatively engage with these cycles, and in such a way where if it's on a stone or a constructed stone site that might be there for many generations, where others could enjoy and experience what that relationship looks and feels like over time. In any case, so this is the bigger thread of why this full moon on Sunday is such a beautiful time. And people always ask, well, what's the lunar solstice? What is the lunar standstill window about? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? People always want to know what it means. And I don't, and I always stumble around that because honestly, like, I don't know. And I think that archaeoastronomers have only recently, as of the 90s, begun to discover these sites even existed. So our Western modern minds are only beginning to understand how people observed this. But we have we've known for a long time, people have known, there have been written accounts of these 19-year lunar cycles, and it was a community celebration time. It was something that was quite visible. And often when you've got something that's that visible and dramatic, it's something where everybody gets together and they celebrate that kind of an event. So I think the big thing is celebrate it, party, have a good time, bring people out there, enjoy time under the sky and with the earth. But if we want to really tune in, I'm going to invite you to also just consider, what does it mean for a planet or the moon to be out of bounds, to be really in an extreme or in a very strange kind of at its further extreme, right? What does that mean? One of the ways to see that is that it's just this, it's a experience that's out of our norm. We're not accustomed to this, whatever this, it's out of our, you're out of the box with this. It's a wild card. It's an energy that is outside of your known universe, right? Or not, I mean, it happens every 19 years, right? But we know that it is a time where we can operate outside of our norms. And it's lunar, it's the moon. And so it's a full moon already, and it kind of amplifies this experience of time out of time, of some kind of a magic or a medicine. But what I most recommend is spend time under the moon and get your own experience, get your own downloads. What does this mean? How does it feel to see it? How does it feel in your body? What are the insights that come through? Because what I'm most excited about, and this is actually something that this year I'm finally going to activate, is emergent astrology. That is the version of astrology that I am that I am evolving forward from the shamanic astrology paradigm. I have been for years. A lot of that is woven into my dream work. Back in 2015 is when I began that process of gathering people to work very deliberately with the astrology and to dream with it, and so that each one of us, I believe deeply that at this moment astrology is alive. Each one of us is a tuning fork or a channel or an oracle who can access the alive, vibrant, emergent wisdom from the planets, from the stars, from the astrological signs, because they're evolving just like we are. And so when we come together in circle, or when we come together in group, and we're each saying, well, this is what I felt in my body, or this is the dream I had last night when the moon was with the Pleiades, or this is this the sensation or the repeating pattern that I notice every month when the moon is with Venus. This is how we evolve forward the paradigms. And it's time to evolve them forward, because any of these fixed kind of academic ways of understanding things, I think most of us recognize now it's boring. It doesn't feel alive. It doesn't feel true anymore. We're having to break everything open. So that's really a lot of what I wanted to bring through for this full moon, just to offer this for you, to support you in working with it. And now let's talk about the astrological sign. So I'm going to actually share my screen so you can look at a picture of the full moon. So just understand this is, I'm just saying San Luis Potosi, because that's where I'm going to be in Mexico, actually in a little ranch a couple hours away, but I'm just saying that to be simple. It's going to be at 3:02 a.m. is when that full moon is. Moon is at 23:53 Gemini, and it's and the sun is at 23 Sag. And so the Gemini full moon is, in terms of the archetypal energies we're working with, every full moon is a moment to work with oppositional energies or polar resonant energies, complementary energies, we might say, where the sun and the moon are gazing at one another. And so in astrology, you always have these twinned or opposite signs that are kind of two halves of a whole. And to be a whole human, we're each wanting to learn and to come into balance, which is really the invitation right now. We're wanting ultimately to learn to have a healthy relationship and a live relationship with the first house energies, the seventh house energies, or we could say Aries and Libra. I'm getting probably off track a little bit. In any case, but in the case of the full moon, the moon is in Gemini, the sun is in Sagittarius. So we want to learn to work with these energetics. And so to begin with the moon, so the Gemini full moon, Gemini is all about, well, first it's an air sign. So it's an energetic that can tend to be quite cerebral, or work with the element of air that is very expansive, very spacious, likes to be able to move and adapt and shift around, just feel into what is air, what is wind, what is that element. So Gemini is an air element sign. Gemini is also the modality is mutable. And another way to talk about the mutable signs is it's in service to spirit. Now, opposite signs will always be of the same modality. So both Gemini and Sagittarius are in service to spirit, meaning that the orientation is around how do I connect to spirit? How do I connect to the energies to the world that is behind this human construct? How do I connect to the sacred? And so the Gemini full moon, so Gemini is concerned with that. Gemini's archetypes are the sacred fool, the trickster, the heyoka within some native traditions, who is the one who is the sacred clown, the one who sometimes does things backwards. I find that concept of the heyoka extremely useful, because in our current modern reality, we've forgotten that is actually a sacred function by and large, but it absolutely is sacred, to use humor, to use irreverence, and to do things in a way that's completely opposite what's expected, and to blow people's minds in that way. That is a sacred function. And so that's some of the qualities of Gemini. Also, Gemini is shapeshifter energy. Now, I think of Gemini as having a shamanic function. And that is related to the shape-shifting capacities. So, um, and again, that Gemini has a unique capacity to move between worlds. Gemini can be seen as the psychopomp, or the one who who guides souls into the other realms. So there's something about Gemini and the Gemini energies of this full moon that's an invitation to move into Kairos time, which is Kairos time is like this timeless kind of dimension where we move into a state of flow, and we're really following synchronicities and signs and working more in a magical sense. Gemini also has a strong connection to alchemy and magic. Think about Hermes or Mercury as the traditionally ruling planets connected to Gemini. So Gemini is a very magical, playful sign that wants to break all the rules that don't make any sense. Really wants to do things her own way or his own way. It's a free electron energy. It's this very wild kind of exploratory, playful, can be that way energy. And what happens when Gemini is domesticated or colonized is that it gets locked into the mind and gets and we've seen this because Jupiter's been in Gemini and it expands all the Gemini qualities, so it can be very positive or it can be challenging. So in its colonized state, Gemini is lives in the mind, doesn't have a connection to the body, is addicted to absorbing information from every realm. And we live in a time where if you've got a lot of Gemini or other air signs in your chart, it might be challenging with all the massive change to not be addicted to your phone or to just gathering information from out there. So the shadow side of that for Gemini is that we become a mimic, and mimicking isn't a bad thing. You know, we learn through playing and mimicking and all that. It's simply if we overuse that function and we don't actually learn to mimic and shapeshift in such a way then that we then integrate it into our own experience, and we take it, we embody it as our own selves, if that makes sense. So we get to be our own, I get to be me, I get to explore, play, oh, what does that feel like, what does that look like, and then perhaps a good way to say that is then we filter it into the Sagittarius, which is the aspect of self that wants to know truth in a way that is really felt in the body, wants to explore gnosis, like what is my experience of sacred truth or knowledge? When do I receive those downloads, that spiritual wisdom from divine in a way that feels really makes me come alive, and it feels like a inflowing connection to spirit? And so, with healthy sacred Gemini and Sagittarius, there is this quest for spiritual knowledge and meaning and understanding. And when they're in healthy relationship, then Gemini can go out, scout the field, and bring in the insight, the information that is of benefit, that is going to serve us in our quest for truth and meaning. But there is discernment there, and is going to play with that, but is going to bring in whatever helps to develop and cultivate the cosmology or the map or the perception or the larger frame that helps us make sense of our world and helps us cultivate a vision that can help us um, help us to live in a good way and have hope and positivity and a sense of um, a bright, beautiful future, right? Okay, so those are just some of the qualities of the full moon that we can work with. And but this is just a beautiful full moon. And so there are actually the Saturday night full moon will be really beautiful on the level that that full moon will be very close to Jupiter. You can see here by 3 in the morning, it's already moved about 8 degrees past the full moon. So Saturday night and Sunday night will both be very special because Saturday night you'll see the full moon near Jupiter, which will be very beautiful, and we'll just feel that magic of Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini. Jupiter, it's very playful, very buoyant, very joyful energy potentially, very magical, just expanding the sense of lightheartedness. And boy, don't we need that. And then Sunday, you'll be able to experience, because I'm gonna actually, because you know, full moon is a 3-day event. It's not just one moment. We like to look at when the moon and the sun are exactly opposite, to mark that time, but traditional peoples wouldn't have just worked with that. You work with it over the period of 3 days and usually 2 lunar risings, right? Okay, so before I go to Sunday night, though, I will mention the moment of the full moon is important as a signature, as a blueprint that sets the energy or the tone. And the time of the full moon, interestingly, is right when Mercury is preparing to station direct after 3 weeks retrograde. So again, when a planet is stationing direct or retrograde, I talk about this a lot. That is a really good time to tune into the magic or the medicine of that planet. So Mercury is also really powerfully in the field. And of course, with all this Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini, Moon and Gemini energy, and then you've also got Mercury stationing. It's like, wow, it's massive, very magical, very time is going to be moving in a very interesting way. Um, so my invitation for you is just make the space to play, to enjoy being with friends, with community, to just tune into the magic and please let yourself off the hook from any kind of if you can take the weekend to unhook from a sense of duty or obligation or any of those time-bound things as much as possible. Hang out with your kids, with your elders. Um, just have a great time, enjoy yourself. This is a really good time for that. And then Sunday, of course, again, the moon is going to be at Lunistice, the full moon closest to the solstice, and it's the lunar standstill window. So that's very exciting. And so you can go and experience the moon rising in a very unusual position in the sky and tune into that. But yeah, this is a really beautiful full moon. I highly encourage you to be out under the sky for it if you're able. If you don't see if there's clouds, then you can still feel it. The medicine's still there. So enjoy, have a wonderful time, play. Uh, Please, if you're able, just let yourself take some time without the usual burdens of the way we schedule our time so tightly or try to cram in so much. If you can take some time to play, please do that. It's going to be a really a beautiful full moon and beautiful weekend. So I'm going to stop sharing here. There is one thing. That's right. One thing I wanted to share before though I go, which is just so you can understand that at a full moon, it's going to be in Gemini at the time of the full moon, but the next night it will have moved into the sign of Cancer, right? So that it is still the Gemini full moon that sets the tone, but the time for moonrise Sunday night, it will have shifted. So I want you to see that. I'm not sure if you see the changes, so I'm gonna stop share and share again. But yeah, here's the moon. Now it's at 2 degrees Cancer. So also this is something to note that the sun again is at its furthest extreme to the north or the south at the winter and summer solstices. And that's the moment when the sun moves to 0 Capricorn at the winter solstice or to 0 Cancer at the summer solstice. So interesting to note, when the moon is really close to 0 Cancer or 0 Capricorn, it will also always be at its extreme to the north or the south. And once again, just repeating this, that's always going to happen every time every month, the moon is going to hit those points. Every month, the moon will be doing the same thing the sun does at the solstice and solstice, summer and winter solstices. However, the moon will be at a different phase every month that happens. So it's at the full moons closest to the solstices that you can really see this effect with the moon being at its extreme. However, it's every 18.6 years that the moon is even more extreme in its relationship between itself and the earth and the sun. So just so you know that. So the moon's going to be at 2 Cancer Sunday evening when it rises. That's about what it's going to be at depending on where you live. And this is also a very interesting point in the sky. Normally it's close to the center of the sacred hoop of stars. So I'm going to be really interested to see actually where it falls, where it's located. But at the summer solstice, the moon's going to be close to where the sun is at summer solstice, Sunday night. And so it's going to be somewhere within what we call the sacred hoop of stars, which is an area of the stars that's very important to the Lakota. And it is interesting. We're going to be doing sweat that night um, with a lovely friend and human who is a Lakota um, pipe carrier. And so I just remember that. That's interesting. So in any case, it's a portion of the sky. If you can really see, it's a circle of stars that most of us are familiar with. Where at the one corner you'll see the Pleiades, and you'll see the Bull constellation, and then you can see at the other edge the Twins constellation. The feet of the twins, Castor and Pollux, are one end of um, that circle, and then you'll see Orion's belt that's kind of at the center, and then you'll also see Sirius, but beneath that circle of stars, and that's the brightest star in the constellation. So it's the most gorgeous thing. There's the Winter Triangle within that part of the sky, and any of you have seen a really good dark sky. With those stars, that circle of stars. And if you've been observing that Jupiter has been within that circle, so it just brightens everything even more, it's a stunning part of the sky. So the fact that the moon is just really going to be brightening all that up is very exciting. Okay, so hope you enjoy that, and gonna stop there. So happy Lunistice, happy full moon in Gemini, and I hope you have a wonderful one. And sending everyone so much love from Mexico, and may you just be be able to lighten your heart and lay down the heavy burdens for a while, so that you can restore your spirit. Because we all have a playful spirit that wants and needs to be able to just experience the magic of life. So I would encourage you, if you are able, to take that time. And it helps to be with children, it helps to be with elders, it helps to be with friends who have a light, playful spirit. So if you are able to access that, it might be your pet. Then I hope that is something that you can experience. And even if you're just with yourself, to really honor and access and play and connect to that playful child within that just really loves the wonder of the beautiful full moon and the stars, and basks in the magic and the wonder of this creation. All right, so sending you so much love, and enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.